Today we have come to Bletchley Park in Buckinghamshire, which was the home of the World War II codebreakers. So we shall see you inside. Right, we're inside Bletchley Park. We've just paid a child for George and adult for John, and I got in for free as a carer, and there's plenty of disabled parking as well. So we're just about to head into the first part. So here we've got a dispatch rider bike. Most dispatch riders were women and were known as Donnars, and they're responsible for collecting intercepted radio traffic from Y stations, delivering some of the vital intelligence produced at Bletchley Park. So here we've got an Enigma machine. Many thousands of these cipher machines were used by German forces. When a letter is pressed on the keyboard, a system of rotors and wire changes it to a different letter, which then lights up on the lamp board above. And down here, I can't pronounce what that is. It's otherwise known as it's secret.
A really hard to name machine.
Yeah, it's a German word, and I know no German. A secret writer. This machine has a built-in teleprinter which could transmit messages. The messages were often sent over telephone lines, so were difficult to intercept. So here we've got a radio set and headset, the equipment of the type used by intercept operators at Y stations. And there's a Morse key, and there's a wireless telegraph form. So it says deciphered messages, deciphered German text printed out from the Typex machine has been pasted on the back of this Y station forms on which the original intercepted messages were written. And this is a modified Typex machines, which was a British encryption machine used by its armed forces. It was more secure and more versatile than Enigma. So there we've got some of the messages that were decoded. So people fluent in German and other European languages were in high demand at Bletchley. Many code breakers trained in Japanese were sent abroad to work on Japanese codes and ciphers much closer to the front line. So we've got some dictionaries and vocabulary books, and here we've got some Japanese training aids. So here we're by the lake that's got a fountain in the middle, and there's places to sit all round, and in the distance there we've got the manor house or the hall, I forget which one it's called. And according to the information we were told on a previous visit, this is where they'd come out and they'd have their lunch, and a few relationships and romances started up around this lake. But even if you were in a relationship with someone who worked in another department, you didn't talk about the work that you did. It was that secret. But I imagine it was quite lovely to sit out here in the summer.
I would imagine it was.
Okay, here we're in an admin office, and it says that in this very room a historic meeting took place late in the evening of the 8th of February 1941. Several months before the USA entered World War II after Pearl Harbor, 4 US military personnel arrived at Bletchley Park to discuss an exchange of information on Japanese and German codes and ciphers. So this was where the United Kingdom, United States special relationship began. So it wasn't us, John.
You know, in all these years I thought that it was.
So this room clearly is the library, and throughout the wall the mansion was used to accommodate various sections of GC and CS, with the library initially being used by the German and Italian naval subsections. So those are their desks there, with a very nice fireplace. So we've got a nice bust there of Churchill. We've just been to look at a film about the women who worked at Bletchley Park, and unfortunately we've left part way through because there was a lot of print on the screen that I was reading to John, and I just got filthy looks for doing so. So we've left. So put a bit of a dampener on the day, that has. We're coming to Hut 1, which is now a kiosk. Over there, there's Hut 3. We have our cycle here. Keep calm and eat ice cream.
Oh, sounds good to me.
So we've got Hut 3 there. We've got Hut 6 there. Hut 8's there. And they really are quite small inside. And people used to work in there on a daily basis. Okay, we've come inside Hut 3. It's very, very narrow. So we've got different offices off to the sides. There's an office there. Notice they've got blackout blinds in the windows. Let's have a look. Different dictionaries here. Let's have a look. German dictionaries. So translating the code as they're working together. Complete with the ashtray. So we've got another office here, complete with the old typewriter. Says on it, "Gone to lunch, please do not touch my typewriter." This is the intelligence officer's room. So these ones worked out cover stories to conceal the fact that Enigma ciphers were being broken. I'm inside Hut 6. George and John are waiting outside because there was a step up. So this was some of the most important code breaking of the war took place in this hut. This was the administration room, which was headed by Gordon Welshman, who set it up to operate as a code-breaking production line. Each stage in the decryption process needed staff with particular skills, working in 3 separate shifts to provide 24-hour cover. By 1941, Welshman was desperately short of staff and equipment, including bomb machines, to speed up decryption. So this room was known as the crib room. And it says a crib was information and a message that gave a clue about how it might have been enciphered. It could be something like a routine phrase such as "nothing to report." Staff looked for likely phrases and passed menus to bomb operators who would set the machines to search for messages that might contain that crib. This is known as the nets room. To test out possible settings for the day's Enigma keys, large pieces of paper known as net sheets were punched through with holes according to the keys sent in various messages. The sheets were then stacked over a light. If the light shone up one hole through the whole stack, it was called a drop, indicating settings that might be correct. There's one of the sheets. This is the interception control room. Staff here liaised with Y stations and other sites intercepting Enigma messages to ensure all radio networks are covered. If one station had difficulty intercepting signals because of poor reception, another had to provide backup. By 1941, the room was largely manned by men recruited from London banks who could deal quickly with lots of figures. So now we're heading towards the museum in Block B. So this is the Lorenz SZ4042 Hitler's Unbreakable Cipher Machine. Over here we've got Breaking the Unbreakable, the Tiltman Break and the Tut Break. Most secret. It's all in German, so I don't know what it says. There's a Lorenz machine. A 1930s teleprinter manufactured by the German Lorenz Electronics, an electrical company. The Lorenz cipher attachment Tunny was an inline machine that was attached to a standard teleprinter such as the Lorenz T32. Messages were typed by the sender in plain text on his teleprinter and appeared again as plain text on the receiver's teleprinter. The sender and receiver would not normally see the cipher text produced by the cipher attachment. Short section here dedicated to Alan Turing. A short but brilliant life. Some of extracts from his work here. Turing arrived at Bletchley Park on September the 4th, 1939, where he was assigned to the Enigma Research Section and soon became head of the Naval Enigma team in Hut 8. As well as jointly conceiving the Turing-Welshman bomb, Turing is widely considered to be the father of modern computing due to his fundamental work on the theory of computing and later his work in the field of artificial intelligence. As well as being an amazing intellect, Turing was also an accomplished athlete, achieving world-class marathon standards and rowing for King's College, Cambridge during his time there. His life ended tragically early at the age of 41. So this side is Turing and the evolution of the computer. Today, all who click to open are familiar with the impact of Turing's ideas. To him, we owe the brilliant innovation of storing applications and all the other programs necessary for computers to do our bidding. And here is a statue of Alan Turing. And here we've got an SG-41, which was the last cipher machine developed by Germany during World War II, when it was intended to replace the Enigma. This one was introduced in 1944 and defeated the codebreakers at Bletchley Park. And here's an example of Y stations. So there's Y Station 1, Y Station 2. So Y Stations 1 had their origins in World War I. In the UK, Y stations, wireless intercept equals WI equals Y, were established early in World War I, when it was realised that radio transmissions from any source could be listened into and read by trained operators. By 1917, almost all German naval transmissions in the North Sea were intercepted. In World War II, there was a massive increase of Y station activity, and the Y staff were put on a formal footing. The armed forces established and manned their own intercept stations, the radio amateurs and associated groups eventually being brought under the wing of MI8, becoming the Radio Security Service, RSS. It was RSS personnel listening for illicit transmissions from within the UK who discovered the German Secret Service agent network throughout Europe, the Middle East and South America. So this is some of the equipment that they would have used. Very old radios. So a live demonstration. Oh, looks very complicated. So this is about Japanese code breaking. Different index cards that they used. Right, so we've been around Bletchley Park. It was quite difficult to get round some parts, particularly in the huts, which had quite narrow corridors in there. So we did attempt one with George in the chair, but it was really, really hard work. So others I looked round by myself, and John and George waited outside. And we looked in some other blocks as well, and in the museum. It's a really interesting place if you can get around. We saw some very interesting films. We saw one about D-Day, which was really, really interesting, and we were told that that's only 2 months old. So that was fantastically accessible, wasn't it, John? You could hear it, and
I was going to say that film had something that worked with hearing aid loops, which was quite enjoyable because it made the film a bit easier to hear.
Yeah, so it was really good. We saw one of the older films as well, which has a lot of subtitles across the page and titles and so on. And obviously John can't read those, so I was reading them to him in a very quiet voice, but loud enough for him to hear. And I was just getting filthy looks off people around us. So unfortunately, there's ignorance everywhere. And I did let it spoil my day a bit, to be perfectly honest. But that's not the fault of the staff at Bletchley Park. they can't control who comes in and who doesn't. But I do wish that people would think before they do things like that, because clearly John couldn't read the subtitles on the screen, and he wouldn't have known what was happening in the film without me reading it out to him. So there's no excuse for ignorance. I do wish people would think. But anyhow, it is a really interesting place to visit.
Before you come, and this is something that I meant to take advantage of, but didn't due to procrastination, there is a Bletchley Park podcast that I believe it interviews people that worked here at one time. Really, really informative podcast. I've checked out a couple things, but hadn't checked out as many of the episodes as I would like. But if you check that out, you'll have a bit more of an idea of what you're seeing when you come.
That's a good idea. Thanks for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up. And if you don't already, please hit the subscribe button, and then you'll never miss one of our weekly uploads. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye!